Am I being unreasonable with this difficult situation with sister and nephew? I feel really bad even writing this, but I am finding my 4-year-old nephew absolutely impossible to be around. His behavior is poor. My sister must be struggling, says she isn't and it's all normal boy behavior but it's not. She often will say he's only 4. When he was she used to say he's only 3. It's having a huge impact on my family's relationship with her. For example, it was my son's birthday, who has ASD, and we were all eating birthday cake round my parents. My nephew grabbed my son's cake off his plate, put it in his mouth, and then spat it out on my son's plate. I said that's disgusting, don't ever do that again. My son was in tears about it as he hates any form of contamination if his stuff. My sister then said I was wrong to say anything to nephew, as he's only 4, and it was only a problem because my son's autism. I'm not being funny, but anyone regards of needs would have been bothered about that happening to their food. We've now been asked about Christmas plans, and I just don't want to be around my sister and nephew. He constantly breaks things on purpose and laughs, hits everyone, shouts and screams when told no by parents as my sister never says no. My parents are struggling too, as they don't like their things getting broken. If I ever mention anything to my sister about his behavior, she becomes extremely defensive. But I just can't stand their company at the moment, and I feel terrible for saying that. Not sure what to do further, but limiting contact seems for the best at the moment. Yes, my parents have spoken to my sister about putting boundaries in as school will be difficult for him. He punched a preschool worker in the summer, and she was dismissive of that, saying he's only 3, he wouldn't have meant it. She just said he's only 4 and told me off for saying anything rather than anything to her son. He then turned and smiled at me. He does this often when he knows he's done something bad, and his mum has his back when other family members have tried to say no or don't do that to him. My children and husband sigh if they hear he will be at my parents'. They are pretty much always round there. We have started to invite them here instead and do events separately, whereas we used to do everything together, but we had too many days ruined by nephew being so badly behaved and my sister doing nothing. Yes, I think it is going to have to be a wait until she's ready to do something. I have spoken to her before, but she just gets super defensive. Her relationship with my dad isn't as good as it was because she says he's always telling my nephew off and it upsets him. My dad and mum are now arguing because my mum wants peace, but my dad just doesn't let really bad behavior go. He's but a shouty person, but he will confiscate items from him or take him out on a reluctant walk rather than doing what he wants when he's round there. My children are junior and start of secondary, so my sister thinks I've forgotten EHAT it's like to parent little ones. We don't ever invite them over anymore. I didn't make an announcement, but just won't have them round as nephew broke my son's guitar before we could move it out of the way, and just don't want our stuff broken and launched. I think maybe I will suggest a light walk or something like that and just stay at home at Christmas and see in-laws and my parents separately. Dad is around but works a lot. He unhelpfully finds his behavior hilarious and has taught him to say I will punch your lights out and other such things. That is one of the problems. I have to secretly plan things with my parents because she is always round there, and I mean all the time, and expects to be invites to everything. I think if I invited my parents round only it would cause too much friction and drama. Every year we have always gone round my parents for Christmas dinner, and we go round my in-laws for Boxing Day and 27th. My sister also always is there on Boxing Day, and they have their own traditions they do on that day, so also feel like Boxing Day is off limits without drama. I'm thinking maybe a Christmas breakfast round our house and then spend the rest of the day at ours in peace. I just don't want the day ruined. Last Christmas it was difficult, but as he was a year younger I hoped things would improve, but they've just got a whole lot worse. My children are sick of having to give in to everything, because they are older even if they are not the ones doing the wrong thing. Hope you are enjoying today's video from Mother's Narrative Network. Please like, comment and subscribe for more daily uploads. Don't forget to click the notification bell. I meant Christmas breakfast, just my mum and dad on the hush, just so kids can see grandparents and my mum and dad would be sad not to see us. I just can't do dinner or any evening activities. My husband and children only want to spend limited time with them as they are finding my sister really difficult to be around as well. I also am worried as one of my children has started to say, "Oh, I'm only 10," in a joking way when told to swap seats or give TV remote to nephew, and my sister gets angry. My husband says this all the time, as whenever we pop round to my parents she is there. I think she doesn't like being at home on her own, as whatever she says it must be hard work, and her husband works very long hours. They both think a lot of his behavior is really funny and will video it and share it. I just don't find it funny. Hopefully when he starts school next year things will improve. I don't think my BIL is violent to my sister at all. He is caring but finds laddie things funny and thinks it's funny when he does it. He's the one that does discipline a lot more than my sister, he just isn't around as much. He always puts him on naughty step when he hits my sister and says it's not okay to hit women and has said it's time to go home when he's broken things. It's obviously conflicting information for my nephew, as on one hand he's being laughed at for saying "I'm going to lunch your lights out" and then told off when he literally does it. My husband was really cross about this whole incident. For the obviously bad behavior and the comment on his autism diagnosis. My husband says she will use anything as an excuse rather than look at what is in front of her. My children are quite mature and are more frustrated with auntie rather than nephew. I'll have a think about whether to have a chat or not. I just don't think it will be helpful. My dad has tried and he hasn't been listened to. It's not great that it's putting strain on my mum and dad's relationship. My mum hates conflict and is just overly nice. It's interesting to hear about other families who have been through similar. Hopefully as nephew matures and goes to school things will improve. My sister just will not take on board anything negative related to her son. It's always someone else's fault, or it's his only fault. Distance is needed to avoid conflict ATM and for the sake of my family. My dad has started to organize a few things separately, so he's taking nephew to play center, the Santa stuff, and my boys 8 going to the panto. Me and my dad are on same page. I just need to accept she's not in a position to hear or acknowledge what is going on. The smiling when getting his own way or doing something wrong is something that we've all found difficult, as before when he was younger we'd be of the he doesn't know any better where, as he is signaling very clearly he knows what he's doing is wrong. However, he's a child and it is my sister that needs to do something. My nephew actually loves my boys and they had always been very patient. He's never been easy to be around, but he's ramped up his behavior and they just don't want to be around him, or have their things broken, give up stuff that they have a be jumped on and have him kicking, hitting and smacking play swords round their heads. Which is why we don't have them round, tried to have limited contact, but whenever we come round they are always there. We have even recently turned around when we've seen her car in the drive. I feel bad, but also sad, because my parents was always a place to pop into. We just need to find a new normal for now. My BIL works 6 days a week and long hours. Despite what it may sound like, I do really love my sister despite her parenting choices, so all of this is upsetting for me. She has always wanted the finest things in life, and as a family they like to go on multiple holidays, have nice cars, etc. So BIL works super hard to provide that standard of living, but does mean he's absent from family life a lot. My sister works 3 days a week. Nephew does 2 full days at preschool and 1 day with my parents. My intention is not to push her out at all, which is why I will be the one not going to my parents for Christmas dinner. I would never tell someone they couldn't do something. However, I can't have them round for Christmas breakfast. I have spoken to her, offered to support. She pushes back every time, says it's normal 4-year-old behavior, and I'm being unkind for saying anything. I'm ready to support her if she wants the support. I only mentioned my son's autism as my sister did. I also said it wouldn't matter, autistic or not, no one would like their cake from their plate to be picked up, eaten, and then spat back out on a plate. In the circumstances, I am annoyed that my sister did not say anything, and I was doing the right thing telling my nephew not to do that. Which is essentially what I did. I'm not sure why you think I'm not taking account of my child's needs. It's not a nice thing to do, and you have to learn that it's not nice, or you will do it again. I was annoyed that my sister said he's only 4, because that is what she says all the time, no matter what the behavior. When he's 5, will that be old enough to know not to spit food, punch and hit? How will children learn things aren't okay if they're not told? Completely agree. I wouldn't have expected her to tear a strip off him, just as you do what's right and wrong and not blame someone else, or use age as an excuse. When I have had nephew on my own to look after, he is much calmer and is easier to be around. It's just he's always with my sister round my parents, and he's very different. Nephew prefers not to be looked after by myself and my dad, and prefers to be with my mum if he isn't with my sister. Thanks for the replies. I think space for now, with the door always wide open if my sister wants to speak or needs anything. I will try again, but I need Christmas to be calm. I take what you say on board and will think more carefully about what I say next time. I didn't raise my voice or say it aggressively at all. I was shocked, to be honest. It was disgusting, and that is a word he understands. I don't want him to do it again. My nephew hasn't been diagnosed with anything. I have had this conversation with my sister, as one of my children is autistic, and I know it can run in families. She was very defensive, said definitely not, he's a normal boy. All I know is that both my children, one ND and one NT, I still both, when things were right and wrong, and I would correct undesirable behavior. I've been there through some really hard times, but always expected respect. My sister may decide there is something more to my nephew's behavior, but until she starts setting boundaries, it is hard to know what is going on. As said previously, I will always be there for my sister and help her, but when she is refusing to engage in any discussions, I need some space at Christmas in particular. At the end of the day, it's my sister's choice on how to parent her child, not mine, but it doesn't mean I can't find it all frustrating. I'd love to be able to go to my parents' house with my kids on my own, but that can't happen, and I have to accept that, so is why I am thinking of how to manage a way forward. I hope it will improve, because I love my sister and nephew, and we've always been a really close family. We have always been round my parents quite a lot and would pop in. They've been retired for 10 years now, and so have always been around. When I say my sister is round there all the time, I mean all the time. She even asks when my parents are going on holiday, and books a holiday for the same time. My dad comes to our house when he goes for walks. My mum has always liked everyone to go to hers, as she loves hosting and they have a big house, so it's more comfortable for everyone, and just kind of became the thing to do. I will invite my parents round mine more. We're a really close family, so I would never go no contact. I just need a little space and break, as the behavior is full on for us all. I don't think my BIL is abusive. I think he is an idiot. We are different families, but that's okay. He loves Oasis, boxing lad culture stuff, and doesn't believe in education in the same way I do. He works hard and gets a decent wage from putting in the hours. I think he wants my nephew to be a little mini lad for the camera. Like videoing him saying stuff, or singing Wonderwall with sunglasses on type stuff. Not my scene, but it doesn't mean he's violent. If I thought for even a slight second I'd be doing something as would my parents. No, she has never paid for anything that is broken. He's broken my mum and dad's television, chucking items at it when my dad turned a TV program off, and many other things, but the TV was the worst. We hide everything now. My eldest knows to not ger his phone out at all, because that would be chucked. We don't leave anything at my parents anymore since he broke my 10-year-old Warhammer stuff. My sister blamed me for leaving stuff there and blamed my dad for turning the TV off. This is the background to what we've been dealing with. My mum and dad can choose how they deal with things, and we will just have to set new ways of seeing them until things improve. I'm hope they will in time. I wish I could say this was something I'd be willing to do, but I need to be around for my own 2 children, although older, and I'm not prepared to do this every time. I don't know why you have come to the conclusion we don't have a close relationship from my posts, as I have said many times what a close family we are. What is making the situation difficult is actually how close we are. I have said we want a quiet Christmas at home, and my mum is going to come round for breakfast. My dad has actually decided to work on Christmas Day, so that has made things less awkward that things are different to how they usually are. We didn't get together over Halloween like we usually do. My mum said my sister had said she doesn't understand why, so it is a discussion I am going to have soon. My mother endangered my child in hospital, then left when I told her off. Am I being unreasonable? Hi, just looking for a little outside perspective. DD2 was in hospital with pneumonia, very scary time. We have very little support. My mum is our only support. She will have her overnight once a month, so it's not like she has her loads. It's just dawned on me that she is playing a mother's role to my daughter. Not helpful when we are in hospital, and I spent ages trying to get an oxygen mask on my toddler's face as her oxygen levels had significantly dropped. Along comes my mum with a little piece of cheese. I asked her not to give her the cheese, as she has an oxygen mask on and I had a hard time getting it on. Didi needed oxygen. She completely ignored me. Took the mask off and gave her the cheese. This had been building up over the 3 days we were in hospital. I told her calmly that I had asked her not to do that and that she was overstepping boundaries. She looked at me with a smirk on her face and said, "I can go if you want." She had been coming once a day for a couple of hours, so I could see to things at home. I have 2 other sons. I reply with, "Do what you want to do," and with that she walked out. I'm in hospital on my own with a toddler. I have 2 sons at home that miss me and wanted to see me for an hour. I've had no food, no shower, no clean clothes, not slept in days. And I haven't heard from her since. This has made an already truly awful time even more stressful. I probably won't hear from her at all, as she is so stubborn and ever so controlling. Is it worth making up for the little support I receive, or do I just go it alone? Sorry to hear your daughter is ill. I agree trying to feed a child who's wearing an oxygen mask is annoying and unnecessary. Do you have other support? Who is with your sons? Are you a single parent? Who's got the other kids? Sounds like she was offering a bit of cheese to diffuse the situation, and then you could try again with the mask, say 30 seconds later. It's very upsetting to have a child in hospital. Maybe you did overreact a bit, but understandable in the circumstances. Only you know how she usually is and how upset she may be as well. One of my sons is 19, my other son is 9 and is with his dad while I'm in hospital, who has a new family and his own commitments. Yes, single parent. She wasn't there whilst I was trying to get the mask on, she came in after. Her stats dropped dangerously low. She knew this. Like one thing at a time, oxygen first. As someone whose toddler Has been in hospital a lot with low SATs a lot. Ask for nasal cannula with the stickers. You will need to pin her down when the nurse puts it on. But trying to keep a mask on is a nightmare. It is really tough being in hospital, and it can make you quite short-tempered. Your mum sounds like a pain, but at the end of the day, you have been relying on her coming in, so you might just have to put up with these annoying little things. I mean this in the nicest possible way, but if a says we're dangerously low, a nurse would have been there and there would have been no mucking about with the mask. Can your 19-year-old come in for a bit? My adult son is autistic and I am a carer for him. So no, he can't really help at all. I live far from the hospital also. Yes, Dee Dee has the tube with stickers now. She tore the first one out, as she really does not like a fuss. So the nurses just kept an oxygen tube by her. But she had a coughing fit, temp went up. Oxygen went down to 83, heart rate over 200. I was shouting for nurses, it was an emergency situation, and very stressful, white frowning face, as she now has the stickers and tube again. Ask your adult son to come to the hospital to mind his sister while you go home to change and eat. Start building an alternative network of support and ditch your toxic mother. Where is your daughter's father? Can he not sit with her in the hospital while you test for a bit? Daughter's father lives overseas. Also might be worth mentioning my mother is not interested in my sons at all. Only my daughter. She never has or had my boys. Not bothered about them in the slightest. This, I literally feel like it's a power play, and the more I think about it, it's the way it's always been. I'm happy to slum it in hospital, well I suppose I have no choice now. I just don't understand the behavior at a time like this. She knows full well what she's doing. She has OCD and a history of controlling behavior. My boys are older and different situations. I wouldn't see one left out. I just wonder why she wasn't like this with my boys when they were younger, etc. Let her walk and keep walking. I'd rather struggle than have someone feel they had power over me. Considering your daughter's SATs were rather dangerous, she's an absolute horror for removing the oxygen mask for a bit of blooming cheese. Hope you are enjoying today's video from Mother's Narrative Network. Please like, comment and subscribe for more daily uploads. Don't forget to click the notification bell. I'd rather struggle, this is exactly how I feel. I would rather struggle. It's unforgivable, OP. There's just not a universe where my mum would do this. Okay, she might try to force the cheese, and she might roll her eyes at me, and we might have bickered about the mask until I resorted to a teenager whine of moo, but not in a million years would she have left. You must be so hurt. Remember, she didn't just leave you, she also left her granddaughter, and for that I'd be angry as hell, because no matter how annoyed she was with you in the moment, there are kids in this. The granddaughter poorly in the hospital, and her grandson missing his mummy. Unforgivable in my eyes. Is there a MIL, friend, partner, ex-partner, auntie, sibling you could ask for help from? Yes, incredibly hurt. It's okay, I'll manage. Thank you. Who is caring for your eldest? He's staying with my elderly grandmother while I'm in hospital, which is really helpful, but also not ideal as unfortunately she's unable to cook for him, etc. It's really difficult. Unforgivable. She risked your daughter's health and then left just to make a spiteful BEY point. Because she knows you need her and she probably wants you to beg her to return. I wouldn't do it. If there is any way you can get by without her, I would try. If it is too hard, then keep her for this hospital duration, then I would go low contact afterwards. You need supportive people who care about you all. Thanks. This is how I'm feeling. It's been building up over days. Constantly overbearing behaviors. Not just the cheese. prompting me to change her nappy, even though it has no wee inside it. Let's sit her up, she's comfy as it is. She has OCD, so I don't know if it's that. But my daughter's care falls to me. I'm 35 years old. I don't need to be told how to look after my toddler. She doesn't need two mums stressing over her in the hospital. That's literally what it felt like. It sounds like the boys might not be cared for as they are used to but are safe, so I would just accept the situation and focus on your little girl. I would ask staff to not let your mum in to visit and send her a polite text thanking her for the help she's given to date and explaining that you will see her when you are home again, as visitors in hospital is getting a bit much for both of you. That's really great advice. Thank you. Your mum sounds exactly like mine. It hurts so much and your feelings are valid. Things that, marginally, help are remembering that I am breaking the cycle by parenting my children differently. Not expecting her to change, she never, ever will. Distancing myself massively. Forgiving myself when we get on okay for a spell and I delude myself that mutual love and support is possible, it's not. I have to accept that whilst acknowledging it's painful and sometimes I regress. My heart goes out to you. Nailed it. It can be so confusing. Must stop deluding myself. And I am breaking the cycle. Thank you. I read the ARP's circumstances. It is clear that she is very reliant on her mother and grandmother for support to care for her children. I'm sure this is difficult and frustrating and creates friction and resentment that would not exist if she were less reliant. It often does. What makes no sense is telling someone they can leave and then being outraged when they leave, especially when you need their help. I'm not reliant at all. On a normal day, I have my children 24/7. I can go without the once a month my daughter goes to stay there, because I still have my sons. And I'm not outraged at all. I'm upset and hurt. I feel so much sympathy for you. It's horrible to purposely disregard your wishes for your child, just because she feels entitled to as your mum. That's regardless of the fact that you were absolutely right about the oxygen mask. I've had sepsis that evolved into septic shock and very, very nearly killed me. I've been left with multiple organ damage, and that was after being on the highest flow of oxygen they had. So being hypoxic is no joke. I understand that your mum might have been fussing about with the intention of trying to make your daughter feel more comfortable, but there's time for that when she's not critically ill. She needs all her energy to cope with recovery, so it's probably best for your mum not to be there and starting arguments or tension. She's pretty petty to actually walk out and leave you to it though. Anyone who has a brain cell and a bit of compassion would know that you are under stress and forgive any perceived slight. I do think it's a bit of a power play to teach you a lesson. I think that at some point in the future, when things are more settled, you need to have a heart-to-heart and put some boundaries in place regarding the role you want her to have going forward. You do need to balance it with some appreciation for the help she's given you, but you are the nun, and it's important for everyone, including your daughter, to see you as that. I'm also a mum of 2 ND young adults, so understand why your 19-year-old isn't in the place to offer much support for you. It's very difficult having other people who need you when you have another in hospital. I've had that unfortunate and challenging experience too, so know it's exhausting. Some children's wards will give you leftover meals. If they have some or somewhere you can make yourself some toast. It might be worth talking to the staff and seeing if that's possible. Sending you strength, hugs and best wishes for your daughter to recover soon XX. Really kind. Thank you. OP, your mother sounds horrific. Putting her granddaughter's health at risk so she can score points over you, then flouncing out like a massive toddler. It's all about her when it should be about your DD. Don't even think about apologizing to her. You've done nothing wrong. It should be her apologizing. If you can at all manage without her, then do it. I bet you'll feel much more relieved and relaxed without her around. I'm sorry your Dee is so poorly. It was truly awful. It all happened at the same time, as well. I was in absolute turmoil. Thanks. Now I've had time to think. I'm much more relaxed. I'm not going to reach out. I'm going to manage by myself. I'm not playing her games. Absolute child. You are reliant, because right now your grandmother is looking after your older son as best she can, and the only way you can leave the hospital every day to see him, shop, and bring essentials is when your mother comes to sit with your daughter for several hours. This can't be easy for anyone, and having a child in hospital is stressful enough without the feeling of frustration that comes from being reliant on people who are annoying, as family frequently is. You both lost your tempers, and you basically told her to go, and she did. What did you think she would do when you said that? Well, that won't be happening anymore, will it? And furthermore, my grandmother can't believe her own daughter, my mum, has acted in this way. I never told her to go. She said she will go, in a threatful manner, because she was expecting me to beg her to stay. I stood up for myself. What she did was wrong. At times like this you're lucky if you have good family. My grandmother is a star. My mum is a selfish child. And furthermore, I never really asked my mum for her help anyhow. She just showed up and started playing boss. What would be your mother's version of what happened? No, you can't answer that. No, I can't, because I'm not her and I could never understand. Well, it certainly sounds as if your mum has crossed a line regarding respect for you as the primary caregiver of your own child. I think the thing to do is to go it alone, just now whilst you are in the hospital. Could you get respite care for your DS? Or has at least got daytime activities and a support worker in place so he's out of the house by day? Maybe in a month or so, ask your mum to meet you in a neutral space, cafe for example, and have your thoughts together about how you want the relationship with your mum to look going forward. Remember, she will have to have her say too, so hear her out. Just listen to her point of view without any objection. Finish at the cafe in a civilized way if you can. If she starts talking all over the top of you, just stop talking. Do not argue, make no decision at the cafe. Once home, you take as long as you need to think about the cafe conversation. And you now have the experience of looking after your kids alone. So putting all the information together, you will then be able to decide the way forward. Social services will be the ones to contact over respite care for your DS. Great advice, thanks. However, the cafe chat won't happen. Anytime I've tried to talk to her before has gone down like a lead balloon. She's controlling, defensive and gets aggressive when she hears anything she doesn't like. She would never reason with me, white frowning face, that's how I know, unless I reach out, we won't speak again. She wouldn't address what happened. Just brush everything under the carpet. I've had enough of it. I'm sticking to my guns here. You take them off to eat and drink and get dressed and go to the bathroom. They are on and off all day. Yes, but she had only just had it on, bearing in mind that she is only 2, is also on the spectrum like my eldest. Doesn't like anything touching her. She was very distressed having the mask on as she's not used to it. And I had asked her not to give her the cheese. She needed to breathe. What if she had another coughing fit? Her mouth was extremely dry. I would have preferred her to have a drink first. But when she had had a minute to get used to the mask and get her oxygen levels stable and steady. Bonkers. My son was already at my GM. I don't intend to ask anything else of my GM, so I'm unsure what you mean here. Your mother sounds awful. But if you are 35 with a 19-year-old son, then you were just a young teenager when you had him. Maybe your mum took a more hands-on approach then and still tries to. No. I had a bad childhood. I lived on my own from 16 with very little support. My mother has never been interested in my eldest son. I think that it's best not to keep trying to judge the importance of if it was reasonable for the oxygen mask to be removed or not while her daughter ate the cheese. It was probably given with the intention of being nice to a sick child. However, the OP had just had a battle to get her daughter to tolerate it and explained why she was asking her mum not to remove it. Her mum then decided to ignore her. There's lots of procedures and things that have to happen in hospital to keep person healthy. Some of them are uncomfortable, scary, or downright painful. Toddlers can be difficult to get to do what you would like them to do at the best of times and are too young to understand the implications. Having finally got her to keep the mask on, it's understandable not to want someone else to immediately give them a reason to remove it again, especially when it's likely to trigger another struggle to get it back on again. As parents, we make a million decisions regarding our kids. In the vast majority of cases, they are done with the child's welfare and development in mind. Do mums get things wrong? Yes. We are human, get tired, have conflicting needs of others to balance, etc. We still show up every day and keep on trying to do our best. It's not helpful to try to rake over the exact circumstances and nuances of the OP's decision. It was hers to make, and most people surely can at least acknowledge that it's reasonable to consider that complying with the doctor's treatment is important. They don't give oxygen to people who don't need it. Imagine if we were judged on each decision we make in the background we made it under by a group of strangers who weren't there. Time to support the OP during this worrying time. Give her good advice for trying to resolve the conflict at a later time, like at anesthesia. Thank you so much for this level of understanding. You are in hospital with your young child. And here you are, tapping away furiously on your Mumsnet thread, annoyed with your mum. Baffling. Furiously tapping away. Hardly. Anger is an emotion I rarely experience. My young child is sleeping a lot in hospital, leaving me with so much to do. I just wanted a little help to process a difficult situation, and I had nobody else to talk to. Thanks for your helpful comments, smiley face. Stubborn. Controlling. Ignores your son. You had a terrible childhood and left home at 16. Sounds perfect candidate to be involved with your child. It's so hard to cut off a controlling parent when you've been raised by one. I already cut my father off 20 years ago. I felt like although she wasn't perfect mum, she was the only family I had left, if that makes sense. Like the lesser of two evils. I wasn't expecting this many replies. I would just like to take a second to genuinely thank the PPS who get it for your understanding and kindness. It was really helpful during this difficult time and meant a lot. Obviously, if you can't relate, then you wouldn't understand, and that's fine too. Thanks all. Am I being unreasonable? Grandparents treating dear children and step-dear children differently. And my rebalancing of things has been discovered. We have 2 DC and DH has 2 DC from a previous relationship. Everyone gets on well. I adore his DC, they are lovely kids. Every Christmas my parents give money for my 2 DC, bags of sweets and chocolate selection boxes, and a big Christmas Eve box. 2 of everything plus big bags of sweets. There have been a few heated conversations, not when DC are there, and I've made it clear all DC are there 23-24 December each year, and it's unfair to treat them differently. It's been going on for 5 years. DHDC are teenagers now, and last year my parents were saying, well, they are older, why are you still going on about this, they don't believe, etc, etc. SC are so lovely to their little brothers and really keep up the magic of Christmas, and they really make it amazing for them. My parents are so off about it. Anyway, what I've been doing is splitting the money between 4, not 2, and adding to the Christmas Eve box, so that it's for 4 children, not 2. So it's been fine, and the label says from Granny and Grandpa, and it's just for everyone. Well, we saw them last weekend, and one of SC was exclaiming how much they love the Christmas Eve box, and talking about all the nice things in it each year, and I could see my parents' faces. They were furious. They called me afterwards and said never to do it again, or they will stop, so I said fine, then stop. You wouldn't treat them fairly, so I did. I think they honestly expected them to sit and watch and miss out on the box. Today they've said they want my DC drop to them Christmas Eve morning. They'll do the Christmas Eve box, the activities, the film, hot choc with them. They have grandparents' rights now, don't you know? AIBU if I just tell them to get lost. It's really annoyed me. The difficulty is, whilst you have opted for a blended family, they have not and clearly do not consider your stepchildren part of their family. I suppose the ball is in your court as to whether you would prevent your children seeing their grandparents and having a relationship with them, effectively losing a set, whilst your SDC continued to have 2 sets. I understand why you did it, but it was out of order. You basically faked a gift from them. They don't give a shit about their stepkids, so don't pretend they do. Yes, that's true, but I just didn't have the heart to be honest with SC about it. They've been through a lot, and they need to feel equally cared about and valued, so I just did what I thought was fair. It's clearly one of their favorite things about Christmas, the way they were talking about it. I think my parents are so cold to have not been touched by that. That's quite difficult. You can't force them to see or treat SC as grandchildren really, and it's clear they don't. That is a shame, but not a hanging offence. It does seem they are going out of their way to be unnecessarily cruel in this case though, and I wouldn't do anything to facilitate them excluding the SC in light of that. How did your parents get a daughter as lovely as you? You are doing the right thing by these kids, and your parents' lack of empathy for them is appalling. I think you are absolutely right in standing up against your parents on this one. Just cancel Christmas with them if they can't treat the children the same. The Christmas spirit is totally lost on them. I'm so happy for your DSC to have such a lovely, kind and caring SM as yourself, Red Heart Hash. I'd stop accepting the boxes and do your own. I'd also apologize and say not dropping them off on Christmas Eve, as that's time you all spend as a family. It's cruel for them not to include the stepchildren, especially as you have made it clear that you wish for them to be included. I know my parents don't have to accept them, that's their choice, which I disagree with, but they seem to want to make it obvious, and that is the bit I find really unkind. If they cared as they say they do about their biological grandchildren, they'd be happy at what lovely older siblings they have who bring so much to their lives. It's always been divide and conquer with them though. You know. Sometimes I think the expectations of grandparents to treat step-kids the same on here can be unreasonable. In this case, it's absolutely not in relation to the box. I can't imagine sending for 2 kids knowing another 2 would watch them with it. And then to be so horrible when finding out they were getting something too. I'm not so sure about splitting the money TBH. Especially as your kids are small, so you could just pop it in their banks. But not wanting to allow the stepkids to share the same experience as other children in the room, even at no cost to themselves, is what I can only describe as asshole behavior. Hope you're enjoying today's video from Mother's Narrative Network. What do you think? Were the grandparents right or wrong? Please like and subscribe for more daily uploads. Don't forget to click the notification bell. No, your stepkids were saying how nice the Christmas box is and your parents' reaction is to be furious. These are not nice people. How did you turn out so nice? Put them on the naughty step for a year, maybe next year they'll be nicer. Yes, they were literally saying how much they've always loved it, talking about last year's, and saying to DS, I wonder what stuff will be in it this year. They are so lovely, and there was this instant atmosphere and my mother with her sour cat's bum face on. I think what you did was so lovely for your stepchildren and husband. Your parents are being very mean. I have a child with my husband and one from a previous relationship, and I would feel really uncomfortable allowing my children to be treated different by either parents, and so if I was in your shoes I would say to my parents, thank you for the Christmas Eve boxes and the traditions and memories the children have had for the past X years. We wish to carry this on for all the children, and so if you want to do something for just the little ones you will need to think of something around Christmas when the big ones are not around. Such a pantomime, a Christmas event that is aimed at younger children to keep the peace. I would also step away from the stepchildren thinking it's the grandparents doing the Christmas Eve boxes, and let them think it's a natural part of growing up. They are no longer being included, and hopefully it's more age appropriate and not obvious. What you did was lovely. Your parents are meanies IMO. Not to go into too much detail, as not appropriate, but SC have been through a lot and no GP on their mum's side and a lot of difficult circumstances over the years. My parents know all of this and still choose to be unkind, and the only thing they've ever had to say was, why get yourself tied up in all of this? You should have picked someone without kids. They just aren't very nice, unfortunately. Last year SC sat up with my eldest DS, he's 6 and has ASD. He couldn't sleep as was overexcited and overstimulated, and they heard him crying and they said he could sit with them. They'd look out the window as they have the big loft room to try and see Santa, then he could go to bed when he felt tired. One of them came down rushing about trying to find something jingly to make sleigh bell noises. They are 13 and 15 and they are just absolutely lovely. They probably don't mean to cause offense. They clearly do mean to, because there's been several conversations about this and they haven't backed down, and they are genuinely irate that these two kids got to join in rather than sit there and know their inferior place as specters at the feast. They sound awful OP. Stick to your guns, you've done the right thing, and sound like a great stepmom. That is cold of them, particularly given the circumstances you describe. I have stepchildren, and whilst my parents don't view them as being their grandchildren, they are always included in Christmas, Easter-type events, birthdays remembered and properly acknowledged. Because they are children, and it's actually a bit odd to purposefully exclude when it is so much easier and kinder to include. I suspect they were annoyed that you'd lied to the children about the gift, but can absolutely see why you would. You evidently care a lot about them and appreciate the way they love and treat your children too, which is lovely. They sound wonderful, as do you. I don't think there's going to be anything you can do, sadly, to change their minds. I do see as it goes why grandparents don't always treat SC the same, but as you've spoken to them about it before and made clear how you feel, it's a shame they don't respect that. I'd do your own this year for the children. God, that is such disgusting behavior from them. How bloody awful. Can you do it yourself this year, since they obviously don't want to anymore? Yes, I'm going to, as they all love it. At the end of the day, your stepkids aren't their grandkids, and I can't imagine they have any or much of a bond with them. It's not unreasonable to want to give gifts to your grandkids. I think if you wanted to give the stepkids gifts of an equal amount, that's fine. But I think AIBU to half your own kids' gifts from their grandparents. I was a stepchild who was treated differently by extended family. Now as an adult, my step-family have no contact with me, not out of badness, just because they don't think of me or my children as part of the family. My stepmom is no longer around, so there's no one to remind them I should be included. It was a hard lesson to learn and hurtful. I have up trying a long time ago. You are such a beautiful stepmom, but I wouldn't push it. Let your stepchildren experience your love and leave the grandparents out of it. I'm so sorry you have experienced that. Your stepchildren are not your parents' grandchildren. They have their own grandparents. I know what you're trying to say, but if your daughter has been with someone for years and marries a man who has children, then you do make an effort and build a bond for the sake of not only the kids, but also your daughter. You accept the life she has and the fact she has stepchildren. ARP's parents are clearly out of order. If you have all children around Christmas Eve, you do the fair thing and treat them the same. I'm not saying you can't buy your bio-grandkids extras or do nice things alone throughout the year, but it's Christmas. I personally think ARP's parents are making a point. Now telling OP to drop their bio-grandkids off alone to spend Christmas Eve together. I think that's disgusting. When I first read your title, I thought, why shouldn't they treat their biological grandchildren differently? But when I read the subject matter and your parents' reaction to the happiness of your stepchild, I couldn't believe what assholes your parents are. And then they think that you will send your 2 younger ones to them on Christmas Eve. I hope that you won't give in to them an inch. They sound like they are rotten to the core, sadly. Hope you, your husband and your 4 kids all have a brilliant Christmas together. People are very weird when it comes to blood or not blood. I'm part of a group and we had a new member last week. We were talking about grandchildren. She said that she had 1 grandson, but he was only an adopted grandson. The child in question is now a young adult. He was adopted at 3 days old from a young woman in Texas. Son and American DIL live in USA. He has only ever known her family. He is the only grandchild in the family. She is in her early 80s. There won't be any more grandchildren. Throughout the conversation, she referred to him as my adopted grandchild. I found it really jarring. Yes, my parents have said so many times blood is thicker than water. What beautiful and thoughtful stepchildren you have. You also sound like a wonderful stepmom. I don't understand why your DM can't see how lucky her bio-grandchildren are to have siblings who love them so much, and she should appreciate them. Unfortunately, some people just can't see beyond biology. Grandparents' right do not exist in the UK. My in-laws tried that once due to not getting their own way. I would be telling them you are absolutely not dropping the kids off and start your own Christmas Eve traditions. There are enough sad stories of step-families. She should appreciate how happy yours seems. I think you're lovely, and I completely understand why you took the decision to act regarding the gifted boxes and money the way you did. However, I think you should have dealt with it much more head-on at the very beginning, nipping it in the bud. You've taken a passive route to resolving the situation for years, and are being a bit harder now, whereas had you perhaps said, "Look, I need you to treat my SC equally regarding Christmas as my own children, or I am simply not sending any of them for Christmas. Those are my terms at the very beginning, and stuck to your guns, this situation might have been resolved for you by now." That said, some of these old-timer generation parents are stubborn as heck, and you can't change them. So I say you have to be prepared sometimes to be tough with them. Ultimately, they don't have to do anything for their SGC, or even see them as such, horrible as it is. Okay, so they're making a point in excluding your DSC then. This is exactly what my stepdad's family would do, as they also thought he could do better than a woman with kids. Only my mum and stepdad never had the balls to call it out. So my full siblings, and I would literally be sat in a room in tears with 0 presents, as my half-siblings got hundreds of pounds worth of presents. They even made us sit in the pew behind them at church. Surely the only answer here is to ensure you go low contact, and for them not to have contact on Christmas or birthdays at all. They're going to poison your kids' relationships with their siblings if you allow them. If possible, make your DH's parents, the family, the center of Christmas, the birthday grandparenting activity. When I was a child, I do remember we always had Quality Street tied up with gold thread and hung on the tree. But if we had a friend round, they'd all disappear till they'd gone home. So I think it's a theme my parents are continuing, just to be selfish with Christmas joy.
Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's video. What do you think? Were the grandparents right or wrong? Before you go, please like and subscribe for more daily uploads.